It was a Tuesday, just like any other Tuesday. The coffee was brewing, the morning news was droning on in the background, and outside, the world was waking up. For Alex, life was a comfortable loop of familiar routines. Wake up, work, gym, dinner, sleep. He found comfort in the predictability of it all. There were no surprises, no sudden detours. His world was a neatly organized spreadsheet, and he was the master of its formulas. He believed he had it all figured out, that he was in complete control of the path ahead. He was living his life, completely unaware that the script was about to be rewritten by a single, unexpected event. The universe, it seems, had other plans for his quiet, well-ordered existence. He was just putting on his shoes, ready to step out into another ordinary day, when the silence was broken. The sound that cut through the morning calm was jarring. His phone, buzzing aggressively on the kitchen counter. It was 7:15 a.m., too early for a casual chat, too late for an emergency from the night before. His circle was small, and they all knew his schedule. No one called at this hour unless it was important. A knot of unease began to form in his stomach. He glanced at the screen, an unknown number. He almost ignored it, dismissing it as a spam call. But something, a gut feeling he couldn't explain, made him hesitate. He let it ring a few more times, the sound echoing in the quiet apartment, each buzz amplifying his anxiety. Finally, with a sigh of resignation, he walked over and answered, a simple, cautious hello hanging in the air. On the other end of the line, a voice he didn't recognize, professional yet tinged with a gravity that made the hairs on his arms stand up. The caller identified himself as a lawyer from a small town he'd never heard of. He said he was handling the estate of a woman named Eleanor Vance. Alex almost hung up, thinking it was a mistake. He didn't know an Eleanor Vance. But the lawyer continued, his words precise and deliberate. He explained that Eleanor was Alex's biological grandmother, and she had recently passed away. Then came the words that shattered his world into a million pieces. She had left her entire estate to him, a farm, a house, and a life he never knew existed. The lawyer paused, letting the information sink in, and in that silence, Alex's entire reality buckled. His first reaction was denial. A wave of disbelief washed over him. This had to be a prank, a very elaborate, very cruel joke. He was adopted, yes, but he'd never pursued his biological family. He'd made peace with the unknown, or so he thought. Now, the unknown was on the phone, telling him he'd inherited a life from a ghost. Fear began to creep in, cold and sharp. Fear of the unknown, fear of what this meant for the identity he had so carefully constructed. His hands started to tremble, the phone feeling slick with sweat. He stumbled back and sank into a chair, his mind racing, trying to process the impossible. His carefully planned day, his carefully planned life, was suddenly a blur of confusion and shock. Who was Eleanor Vance? Why now? Why him? The lawyer was still on the line, patiently waiting. He asked if Alex understood. He asked what Alex wanted to do. The question hung in the air, demanding an answer. He had a choice. He could hang up, pretend this call never happened, and go back to his predictable life. He could dismiss it as a scam and delete the number, returning to the comfort of his spreadsheet existence. Or he could take a leap of faith into the vast, terrifying unknown. It was an instant decision, one of those crossroads that movies are made of, except this was his life. A voice in his head screamed to play it safe, to stick to the plan. But another voice, a quieter, more curious one, whispered, "What if?" In that moment, with his heart pounding in his chest, Alex made a choice that would change everything. He took a deep breath and said, "Tell me more." That was the turning point. The moment he chose curiosity over comfort. The moment he stepped off his predetermined path. The days that followed were a whirlwind. He took time off work, something he rarely did. He spent hours on the phone with the lawyer, learning about a grandmother he never met and a life she had lived. He looked at old photos sent via email, seeing his own eyes staring back at him from a stranger's face. The comfortable loop of his life had been broken, and in its place was a new, uncertain journey. His apartment, once a sanctuary of order, now felt like a waiting room. He was no longer just Alex, the data analyst. He was Alex, the heir to a mysterious past, the grandson of Eleanor Vance. A part of him was terrified, but another part felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in a long time: excitement. The transition was anything but smooth. He decided to visit the farm, a sprawling property in a town that felt like a different world. The city boy in him was completely out of his element. The air smelled of earth and rain, not exhaust fumes. The silence was deep and profound, punctuated by the sounds of nature, not sirens. The farmhouse was old, filled with the ghosts of memories that weren't his. He struggled with the chores, with the isolation, with the sheer weight of the legacy that had been dropped in his lap. There were days he wanted to pack up and run back to the city, back to the safety of his old life. He felt like an imposter, a fraud playing a role he was never meant to have. Every leaky faucet, every overgrown field was a challenge, a test of his resolve. It was during one of these moments of despair, while clearing out an old, dusty attic, that he found it. A locked wooden chest. Inside, tucked away beneath faded quilts, were journals. Dozens of them, filled with his grandmother Eleanor's elegant handwriting. He started reading, and with every page, a new world opened up. He read about her dreams, her struggles, her love for the land. He learned that she knew about him. She had followed his life from a distance, respecting his adoptive parents' wishes, but always holding a space for him in her heart. She wrote about her hope that one day he would find his way back to his roots, not out of obligation, but out of a desire to understand where he came from. It wasn't about the property or the money. The call wasn't an inheritance, it was an invitation. That's when he finally understood. The call wasn't a random event that derailed his life. It was the destination he was always meant to reach. He had spent his life building walls, creating routines to feel in control, but all along, he was missing a fundamental piece of his own story. Eleanor's gift wasn't the farm. It was the chance to discover himself. It was a lesson in destiny, not as a fixed path, but as a series of choices that lead us to where we need to be. He realized that true control isn't about planning every step, but about having the courage to walk an unexpected path when it appears. Life's most profound moments often come unannounced, through a call you almost didn't answer. Standing on the porch of the old farmhouse, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, Alex was a different man. The city apartment, the spreadsheets, the rigid routines, they felt like a lifetime ago, a life lived by someone else. He had traded predictability for purpose, control for connection. The farm was no longer a burden. It was his heritage, his future. He had found a sense of belonging he never knew he was missing, in the rustle of the leaves, in the smell of the soil, in the stories left behind by a woman he never met but knew intimately. The phone call didn't just change his circumstances, it changed him. It woke him up from the comfortable slumber of his own making and showed him how big, beautiful, and unpredictable life could be. He was no longer just living. He was finally alive. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.